Oscar De La Hoya, I'm a little bit lost here. And by the way, I'm willing to come on the ride with the Golden Boy. I am willing to come on the ride just because of what he did in 1992 for the country. Went over to Barcelona, won the Olympic gold medal. I was in the 7th grade, and it was great. It's a great moment. I remember him. I'll stick with him. But he initially came out at a press conference. It was a drop the mic moment. He walks into a press conference, says, I'm coming back. First fight's May 3rd, drops the mic, walks off. Literally. Which, by the way, somebody should teach him a drop the mic moment. You don't actually drop the mic. It's a moment. Those mics cost money. You could break them. You don't actually drop the mic, Oscar. But at any rate, he's now saying he's going to fight sooner rather than later. And I got to tell you guys, if you're 50 years old, all of your fights need to be sooner rather than later. But just save that thought, because we're now being told that Eddie Alvarez is in very serious talks to fight Oscar. And I believe that. I believe that because Eddie said it. And Eddie has never swerved us once. Eddie has never looked for a headline, even when he had arenas to sell out, such as Madison Square Garden. Eddie just doesn't do that. The weights match up. Oscar said he wanted to fight a named MMA fighter. I just believe it. So, I'm kind of thinking, how'd you get to Eddie Alvarez? How did we get to this point? I figured Oscar, and I got to full respect to Oscar if this is true. Because if I was to guess how he was going to play this, he would have grabbed an MMA guy that either had retired, okay? He's going to call Chael up, or or he's going to grab an MMA guy that isn't red hot. I mean, Eddie Alvarez, regardless of the disqualification, just smoked an opponent a week ago in the first round, right? See what I'm saying? Eddie's not the guy you go play with. So if that is really what Oscar's going to do, man, he's got full respect for me. But you start to look at and wonder how we got here. And I will tell you how we got here. We got here by Oscar not respecting his community and believing that he can make a poster saying De La Hoya versus Alvarez, create confusion amongst the audience, making them think it's Canelo Alvarez, and go buy the pay-per-view. I got no problem with it. I'm just sharing with you what the play is. Now let's just take a look at the fight. I'm not sure that you understand how good Eddie's hands are. Eddie has done so much work on the ground. He uses those hands on the ground that I think a lot of people are forgetting how Eddie gets his opponents down. He doesn't go out there and inside trip them. He doesn't go out there and body lock to a knee block. He knocks you down. Eddie's got hands. I used to travel the road with Eddie. We had a crew. Back in the Bodog days, we had a crew, man. Eddie, I'll throw myself in there. Cain Velasquez. We had a crew that was going around and trying to get their due and get their opportunity. George Masvidal. Eddie was the face of Bodog. And Bodog was being ran by a man named Calvin Ayre, who was a billionaire. And he was pretty frugal with his money. I mean, he wasn't one of these MMA guys like Brewster's Millions. Let's just see how fast we could go through it, except on one exception, which is who's going to fight Eddie. And that was just a case of they needed name guys. They wanted UFC veterans. There was a time on the regional scene, it still exists, but it exponentially higher, where if you were a UFC veteran, you were a main event and you could get a lot of money on the regional scene. I will compare it to today's professional wrestling. Guys are leaving the WWE to go do the indie circuit, but they're making more money on the indie circuit. It's just a very big deal. If you were seen on Monday nights on Raw and you pop into a house show somewhere, that whole community will come out and watch. These guys are just very valuable. UFC veteran, which is still a thing, used to be a bigger thing back then. So to fight Eddie Alvarez, first off, that's a hard fight. Second, you got to be a UFC veteran, which means third, you got to pay them. They're going to get paid. Particularly the smart guys that understand they're getting brought in to do the JOB against a young guy who people haven't heard of. Job Squad's got one rule: pin me, pay me. So they'd have to bring in some money. And there was even a play made on Eddie for Matt Hughes. And they offered Matt Hughes $500,000. $500,000 come in one night and fight Eddie Alvarez. Now, Matt Hughes was red hot back then, red hot. Eddie Alvarez was fighting at 155. It was I remember when Bodog was doing it. I remember thinking, man, Eddie's awfully good, but Matt Hughes was absolutely in his prime and a weight class bigger. We'll never know. This story doesn't go anywhere but there. But I do remember hearing that and thinking, it's a lot of money to pay for a guy on a one-off. Because what happens if Matt comes over and beats him, but you don't have him under contract? It's a lot of money to pay for a guy on a one-off. But they were so sure that Eddie would knock him out, they were willing to write the check. I'm just sharing with you how good Eddie was. But when Eddie was in this run with Bodog, it was all first-round knockouts. All knockouts. The hands matter. Just to bring in a name MMA guy and stick him in a boxing room, it's not the same thing. There's a number of factors that made McGregor-Mayweather work. None as large, no pieces of the pie were as large as the press tour. Conor did his part, Floyd did his part. But there was things that did make you believe this is worth seeing. This isn't a foregone conclusion. And I bring that to you because if, in fact, De La Hoya is picking Eddie Alvarez, I truly will respect that. I truly do believe that's a very bad pick. And when you look at how Eddie wins, he's winning with those hands and he's lightning fast. One thing that we must assume with Oscar is that he's not as fast as he used to be. We must also assume with Oscar, his conditioning is not going to be where it used to be. That's just logic. And you're bringing a guy in Eddie Alvarez that does not come out and feel you out with jabs, which is what Oscar's used to doing. Eddie is trained to fake a jab and step in with a knockout power instantly. It's a very different thing. I realize the MMA guy is switching to boxing, but you start putting 48 years old on there. I don't care how many world titles and Olympic gold medals you had. I watched Eddie Alvarez starch a guy 1 week ago. A young stud, not for nothing, could not go 60 seconds with Eddie Alvarez. So a lot of us in the MMA community think this is silly. The boxing and the MMA guys, it's a little bit silly. Oh, okay, I hear you on that. But we've got a former Olympic wrestler who's about to take on a YouTube guy, and they're going to do really well. I mean, the state of boxing is in a really weird place. And if Oscar De La Hoya comes out by choice and calls out Eddie Alvarez, I'm going to respect it for one. I'm not going to dismiss Oscar's chances. This still is Oscar's world, but I am sharing for you. Eddie Alvarez can punch hard, and he doesn't come feel you out. That's a major difference in boxing and MMA. Because of the gloves and because of the limited rules in boxing, a jab is far more prevalent. You will see guys control fights with jabs. Every boxing trainer who ever comes into MMA on the first day will watch practice and go, my God, you guys don't know what you're doing. You don't throw enough jabs. 2 months later, the boxing coach will understand why we don't do jabs in MMA. There is no controlling a fight. There is no keeping a guy at the end of your punches. There is no if you get in tight, the referee steps in and separates you. The gloves are so small, which are also used for defense. Right? You bring your hand up in boxing, you got a great big pillow. As a matter of fact, you got 2 of them to protect yourself. In MMA, you do everything the same. You don't have anything to protect you. Point being, you just can't come out with the nice stuff. Boom, you got to come out looking to do damage. Because if it gets through, it's going to do just that. I only bring this to you because Oscar's asking for a lot here. I mean, he's biting off a lot here. And if he does it, I think that he should get credit. And I say that to you because it makes me wonder who is going to leave with the shine. If Eddie goes out and beats Oscar, Oscar was like a 6-time champion, definitely an Olympic gold medal, so I watched him do that. Eddie's never done the sport before, steps in, beats Oscar. Eddie deserves to be propped up on the shoulders and bounced around the audience like it's a mosh pit. But I think the same thing goes for De La Hoya, man. If he truly is asking for this fight, he's going to find Eddie Alvarez isn't cheap. He's going to come up with the money to get Eddie, who just starched a guy in less than a minute 1 week ago. I mean, come on. You got to give De La Hoya a little bit of credit here.